So I'm pretty much building like this AI employee with a name, with a set of tools that they can access,
Mhm.
and again now all these operating procedures that I have created before. So now I have a fully operating employee that works 24/7, that doesn't ask for a raise, and that
Yeah.
publishes content like twice per week.
Welcome to Founder Led, where we sit down with some of the sharpest founder operators to learn what's working in their business today. Today's guest is Oscar from Vindex Consulting. Oscar, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me.
Well, Oscar, when we met at the last Agentic Society Mastermind and you shared some of the builds you've been working on, as well as your story, I knew we had to have you on the pod. So would love to start with a bit around your origin story. So yeah, walk us through your journey. I know you grew up in Venezuela, and so
Yeah.
share a bit about your life there and maybe some of the key lessons you learned, and then what you're more recently been doing here in Austin.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate, first of all, getting to know you and connecting with you and obviously being in the pod and being able to share my story. So I'm from Venezuela. I am 31 now. I've been in the United States for about 10 years. In Venezuela, I went to law school and fully graduated. I'm a lawyer over there, but it's one of those things that don't translate well to other countries. But one thing that the law school did give me was a logical, like operational type of thinking where I'm always asking the why behind things and understanding processes and whatnot. So when I first landed in the US, I started as a waiter, just like working in one restaurant or another. But again, that mindset combined with some work ethic got me up the ladder pretty quick on the restaurant industry. So I ended up managing a couple of restaurants and became a general manager of a small restaurant, which was my first experience kind of managing employees, dealing with payroll, dealing with inventory, pricing. And I believe that every business owner, just like how people say everybody should work in a retail or customer service role once in their life, I believe that any business owner should get the experience to work in a startup at some point. Because especially if you come from the corporate world, the startup gives you an opportunity to get exposed to every area of business. So one morning you're doing marketing, at the end of the day you're balancing books, and I feel like that has been the capital, like the actual catalyst to like actually get me to grow in this business world, being exposed to every different area of business. So I've been doing operations for the past 10 years, from restaurants, I went to car dealerships, from car dealerships, I went to real estate, and that was actually one of my biggest roles. I ended up becoming the COO for this real estate company in Dallas, and spent about 4 years there. I learned a lot, and it started with the owner and myself and a couple of people in the garage, in an actual garage. And then 4 years later, we have like 30 employees managing like over $10 million in the portfolio, and just doing, again, just kind of managing all these different areas of business and getting thrown into learning all these things at once. It's literally what's guided me to the point where I can understand operations the way I do. And that's the thing, when AI came out, obviously I knew that this was a revolutionary technology, but I didn't really replace my operational skills with AI. If anything, AI multiplied it. If your process is broken, I feel like AI will just help you do broken things faster. So it all starts with understanding processes and understanding business and understanding where you are as a business owner, where you're spending most of your time. And this is where I think you can get the most leverage.
Yeah, really well said. Is there anything that you learned? We were talking a bit about, mindset before we started recording, from your immigrant journey. I'm also an immigrant from India, and I think there are a lot of lessons we learn at the dinner table, right? Whether it's family members talking, you just see the struggle and just making things happen. So any, mindset shifts that come to mind just as you've kind of navigated things on your journey?
Yeah, I came here on my own. I have no family here in the US, and it was definitely tough in the beginning, but the idea was always that I came here on my own decision, on my own free will, and this is where I always wanted to be when I grew up. So it was kind of like a dream come true, and I always saw it like that. So I feel like the perspective that some people that maybe are born here a lot of times lack is the fact that you're very lucky to even have these opportunities. You're very lucky to go pay $300 and start an LLC, and then now you're in business, right? So this is really the land of opportunity, and I feel like A lot of people take that for granted.
Hmm.
So having that mindset throughout, it was like I can be cleaning toilets today and I know this is for a bigger purpose. So that's what kind of drove me through those 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to add to that, born in India, grew up in Canada. And then once I got to the US, I realized just how one, the market is 10x bigger here compared to, Canada, but I just feel there's this like dynamic energy and
Hmm.
also selling into an American market. Of course, like it's a very large market, but business owners are willing to give an up and coming person or a younger person a chance and hear them out. And I think there's
Yeah.
a higher like risk tolerance, which also means there's more upside, right? Because you might be
Yeah.
working with someone who would cost you less, it's able to work faster. Whereas, in Canada, there's more risk aversion. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh, if you haven't worked with like the big banks or some big established company, it's hard to sell into other businesses. So
Yeah.
I agree. There's no better place to build wealth and also surround yourself with other like-minded builders and entrepreneurs. So, when
Absolutely.
you came to the Agentic Society, you were voted the top build 2 times in a row. I
Yeah.
think that's the only person that's been able to do that. One thing that I observed is, you had these things that you've built and fairly sophisticated, but you also do a good job of communicating the
Hmm.
outcome and the result very succinctly. And
Yeah.
so, did you always have like this marketing mind as well, or is that another skill that you've been starting to like hone and communicate?
Yeah, that's one of those things where I've been just kind of grabbing as I go and learning one thing or another from different industries, and like you said, just like having the opportunity to learn directly from people that are like in better places than I am. So
Hmm.
I've had the blessing of being trusted, sometimes with like millions of dollars and like running somebody's business,
Yeah.
and to a degree when I'm like I even feel like I'm not qualified to do that at the time. I'm just kind of learning as I go. So I definitely feel like there is a way more skills to be learned when you just attach yourself to the right people.
Yeah, cool. Well, I want to now get into like the meat and potatoes on like
Yeah.
some of the real things that you've built. So I know you built an AI, like an outreach agent that's been super effective. Before we get into
Yeah.
that, are there any sort of higher level like lessons that or the ways that you approach building in terms of understanding a problem and communicating with the business owner that you think through before we get into some of these like specific builds?
Yeah, no, I think like I said, I don't really start with the tech. I don't start with the AI. I don't start with which model is better than the other one. I start with finding a task that's eating my week every week. And then I build the machine to do it, and then kind of becomes like AI is the last step, not the first one.
Mm,
So I guess the mindset is sit down, figure out what your actual problems are with what you're doing every day, especially if you're in a startup environment. You're probably wearing a million different hats every single day. So understanding what those actual you're becoming the bottlenecks. So most owners are the bottlenecks in their own business. So I believe that AI and these agents they exist to make you stop being the bottleneck. So
yeah.
kind of like understanding where's the task you're spending the most of your week on, or tasks that are recurring and are happening every week. I was doing this with Zapier and Make.com before AI was a thing. So it's about like automating day-to-day work so you can focus on doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is being the visionary of your business, growing your big relationships, and kind of like staying at the very top of your own game.
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, let's kind of make this practical. So I know you're working within like an HVAC business here in Austin, Texas, and you built basically a system and a presence where you're just able to drive a lot more SEO traffic, which drove a lot of inbound conversations. So it'd be great if you can talk through, the problem that you identified and how you started to build it, and yeah, just kind of like walk through that end to end, and then some of the outcomes that you're able to
Yeah.
deliver.
Absolutely. So, like you said, I'm managing operations for an HVAC company here in Austin. That's kind of where I spend most of my day. And actually, we've been doing commercial and multifamily HVAC for a very long time. But we recently decided to start doing residential as well, which It's a very competitive market in Austin, and there's huge companies spending a lot of money on Google ads and Facebook ads and just kind of staying top of mind. So how do you cut into that competition became like my obsession for a few weeks. So kind of like understanding, okay, where do I need to be? What is it that I need to present? How do I set up my offer? And how do I even compete with these companies that already have like millions of dollars in budget to do advertising? So I feel like one of the frameworks that I utilize a lot is using Claude as my thinking partner, and I guess ChatGPT got to the same point now. So either one of these like active AIs as your thinking partner when you're kind of building out these things, and then there's other tools that are better for ongoing automation and living, I guess, 24/7. Pretty much I started with Claude, brainstorming these ideas back and forth. This is what we've done so far. We have a pretty solid like customer base on the commercial side. How do we actually go about breaking into this residential? So at the time, we had a website for the commercial mainly, but in commercial, it's all about who you know. So you don't really need to do any marketing or SEO or anything like that. But when we decide to make the shift, then now it becomes a priority to make sure that we're visible. So the first thing was redesigning our website entirely to add the residential and to make it more user friendly and to add reviews and all the stuff. So I did all this with Claude. I decided that the best way to do it was to make the website something that was easy for Claude to manage on an ongoing basis and not for me to manage or for an agency to manage. Or so before, agencies have recommended to use something like WordPress, which I still believe that there is a place for that. But nowadays with Claude, you can just code the whole website from scratch and then just host it on a hosting platform, and now you're live. So spend the next 3 days rebuilding the website with Claude, giving it as much information as I could on our offering to where we want to be. But I think the main factor that caused the difference is doing a lot of research on the market, on the zip codes that we wanted to be in. So Claude connected to the Firecrawl MCP. I just started using it to go back and forth with my competitors. Where are they ranking? What keywords are they using on their website? So I'm pretty much scraping the whole websites and creating markdown files out of each one of my competitors. So then through that, I'm able to then finally come up with what we call like a gap strategy. So the content gaps that my competitors are not doing in the specific market where I want to rank. So pretty much I'm reading through their entire website, reading through their entire blog post and seeing where are these people failing? Like what are the few topics that they're not capturing day to day? So after I have...
Just a question on that.
Go ahead.
How are you... Was Claude your thinking partner to identify those gaps? What level of human judgment went into maybe analyzing a competitor page and being like, okay, this is like a 7 out of 10. How do we make it an 8 or 9 out of 10 to rank better? I guess the question is, what's the mix between your level of judgment and what your thinking partner in AI was giving you?
Yeah, so I think it's probably like my judgment was mainly on the design because I've been doing business for a long time. I just have a certain, like I like to see something looking good and professional. So mainly on the design, that was most of my input, deciding how I wanted it to look like versus my competitors, the color palette, and like where I was doing more white and more dark and whatever it was. But the actual content, the copy, I would say it's 90% AI. It's actually looking through the competitors, looking through their blog posts. Because I was using the Firecrawl MCP, I was pretty much able to extract the entire content into MD files. It was easy for Claude to then find, okay, here's some gaps. Here's some keywords that people are searching for, but these people are not posting blogs about it. So let's create this actual strategy that, I mean, normally you would just give, let's say, an SEO employee to do that. So pretty much if you're tracking, then pretty much I'm building out a role of an SEO employee, but I'm doing it in a way that it's easier for AI to understand. So markdown files is a perfect format for every AI to work with. So pretty much I'm creating what I would have done before for normal employees was creating SOPs, standard operating procedures, but I'm pretty much creating these SOPs in the form of MD files that not only my Claude, but any other agent that I create can read through and can use as the base of their strategy. So that was kind of like the main active part of me building out as much research and as much like content before, because anybody can go to Claude or ChatGPT and say, hey, I want to rank for HVAC near me, give me a strategy, right? And you'll get some generic output out of that. But if
Yeah.
you spend the time doing the research and having all this background content for your agents, then now it's so easy for them to operate within the parameters that you have pretty much set for them. So this is all the active work, redesign the website, do all this research for SEO, and then understand where we want to rank. And then at this time, OpenClaw is getting popular. So people are everybody in YouTube, everybody in Twitter, everybody's talking about OpenClaw. So then I start messing with it. I'm not a technical founder by any means. I've done service industries and restaurants and whatnot. So definitely not a coder. I don't really understand how much these things work. But again, the mindset is if somebody is taking their time, 15-minute video on YouTube, and I can spend the 15 minutes to try to follow step by step, I'm probably gonna learn a lot of things in the process. So I just went at it with a few tutorials and then I set up a virtual machine in Hostinger, I installed the OpenClaw, and then started connecting my models. So at the time I was using Anthropic's models, and then I was just going back and forth with it, like, hey, here's what I want you to do. I want you to be an SEO person. I want to name you. So I ended up giving her a name. And then I also ended up putting that person as an employee on my website. When you went to like our team, I ended up putting like an AI generated image of a team member with the name of this agent. So I'm pretty much building like this AI employee with a name, with a set of tools that they can access, and again, now all these operating procedures that I have created before. So now I have a fully operating employee that works 24/7, that doesn't ask for a raise, and that publishes content like twice per week. So pretty much after that, I fed it all the research that I have done before. I connected it to my website through GitHub. And then I was like, you have the permission to create a blog post twice a week. Took some iterating in the first week or so, but after that, I just left it on autopilot, and it was generating blog posts twice per week based on the gap strategy that we have made before. So ideally, these are blogs that are getting us to rank. So in the period that I was tracking this pretty intensively, we went from like 800 impressions in a single week to about 15,000. And this is like eyeballs looking at our website organically. For, again, the cost of setting all this up, plus some API costs, depending on which model you're using, but definitely way better than using like a virtual assistant or even a full-time employee to do SEO.
Yeah, because it sounds like this workflow that you set up was doing a lot of different tasks, right? From the research to the gap analysis to the content writing to continuous improvement. And then it sounds like you built the workflow and the loop with these MD files and just general checks and balances that you can continue to refine and improve at the velocity that you're able to make those changes versus a much slower feedback loop that you might have with a human. Interesting. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. One element that makes it even better than training employees is the fact that I'm not an SEO expert. I don't consider myself to be. I just know enough to be dangerous. So the fact that you can go online and find skills from people that are SEO experts and that have taken the time to build these complex skills that connect to multiple files and understand like how to place the keywords and how many keywords you want per paragraph and like all these different things. Obviously be wary of what skills you download and make sure that you're running all of them through a safety check on your own from Claude or ChatGPT. But either way is the fact that I can just go to a platform and understand, hey, an SEO expert already took the time to build the skill, and now I can just feed that skill to my employee instead of me having to learn it first to train it later. It just the feedback loop is so much faster.
Yeah, it's like you're getting a world-class employee to download their brain, and you're able to get that as a skill, right? It's like Neo learning Kung Fu, but now you're doing it for whatever skill you want for functional expertise. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. And so how long did you say it took to go from 800 site visitors to 15,000?
So I believe it was about 10 weeks of the constant posting.
Wow. That's a pretty short time frame.
Now, I always like to, again, when I get a chance to talk about these things, I can only tackle like the first initial numbers or like the big headline numbers, right? But
Yeah.
there's obviously a lot more that goes into this. There's like listing your website on different sites that are like ranking enough that they can be considered like stable enough sites that are backlinking to your
Yeah.
site. So we put our website in like the Chamber of Commerce, we put our website in Engie, and like all these different things for HVAC companies. And then also at the time, we also set up our Google My Business profile, and we got all of our previous customers to get reviews. So that this is not like a quick get rich scheme. It's more
Yeah.
like, well, this is one of the things that would have taken me either a lot of time or a lot of money hiring an employee, and at least I can leave that thing to an AI and I can focus on the rest.
Was there anything in that was one of the highest leverage things to increase the domain authority for the website? Was it getting the backlinks? Was it a lot of these blog posts over time? What had like an outsized impact?
I think the blog post definitely helped, mainly because it was an invisible website before, and now there's like an active website consistently linking to other places and linking to each other and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of the stuff that came with those skills for the SEO. Is like that's what I ended up creating a fake employee in our website, because then it can list that employee as the author whenever it's posting. So it's like backlinking to other places in our website. So pretty much out of the bag, we're making this website incredibly active, which is what Google likes to see.
Okay, cool. And then I know when Austin published this story, well, this story won like the most popular vote for that mastermind. And Austin published kind of like the deep dive on it, and it's one of the most viral posts that he got. And so talk a bit about some of that inbound or the messages or the DMs that you got based on that deep dive that we posted.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've connected already with like, I don't know, 5 to 10 different people that were just like shook by the whole build out and just very interested in learning more about it, and people that were not able to attend the mastermind, so they just wanted to hear a bit more about how I went about building it out, what were the tools. And I'm still working with some of them, but I think we're gonna do some projects for a couple of them, so hopefully it turns into some business relationships. But either way, I'm just happy to share something that works for me and hopefully works for them. And at the end of the day, this AI thing is how I saw social media back in, let's say, 2005, where you just got to be in it to know it, and you got to be doing it every single day. And the more we can share the knowledge within each other, the more we all win.
Cool. Well, that's amazing. That's a great story. Before we get into the next build, which I think will also be relevant to, say, knowledge workers and people who might be running like service-based businesses more in like white-collar work, right? To understand like the sales agent that you built. I've got a few just questions. So
absolutely,
is it possible to, whether it's a skill or something else, to get Claude to watch a video and understand the context of a video like it could text to then reference for your work?
Yeah, so the way that I do it is I transcribe the video. It's possible, I believe, to do the video, and there are some models that are better for one thing or another. I think Gemini is a little better at understanding YouTube videos because it's fully connected through the Google.
Yeah.
But again, you end up burning more credits every time that you're trying to do like a complex setup like that. So I'd much rather transcribe the video in its entirety and then give that to Claude. And now I'm doing the same output with very little credits.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That makes sense. All right. Well, yeah. Do you want to get into that next build where you built this sort of like outbounding agent and maybe like set some context there around what made you even think to build it, and then what went into it, and then what were some of the learnings, and then some of the key outcomes coming out of it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited about this one because this was one that just keeps working, and it's one of the most exciting things that I built, because again, being non-technical and being able to put something like this together to fully do this automatically, that's actually generating revenue for our company. It's so exciting. So the first thing is we and our HVAC company, we are part of the Austin Energy rebate program, which works with multifamily properties to offer them up to $300,000 worth of improvements per year. So basically the city pays for the program. We're one of the attached contractors. We've been doing this for over 5 years. And for the most part, it's just letting the property managers and property owners of multifamily properties, letting them know that this program even exists. Obviously, they have a lot on their plate. They don't have the time to be researching every different program and every different market. So just letting letting them know that it exists. Then we handle the whole process for them, from submitting an application, from dealing with the paperwork and getting the project completed. So we've done this manually a few different ways. We've reached out to people manually. We've done cold calling. We show up to the property and give them a flyer. But the best way we have found with the most result is actually contacting the owner directly, ideally through email, and then copying the regional manager of that property, because they tend to be the decision makers. So now when you hear this, it's like, well, it's B2B cold outreach. It translates to a lot of different companies. Anybody that's trying to reach another business can probably benefit from a workflow like that. So again, the first thing is finding out which properties even qualify for the program, because there's certain requirements, like the property being 5 years or older. So the first thing is getting data. So I went to a source called Apartments Data. That's a paid source. So then we go ahead and are able to pull this from apartment complexes that match our filters. So now we have, let's say, 200 apartment complexes that we're trying to target right now. And then this data also gives us the company that manages that property, and as close as they can, the company that owns that property. So it gives us a list of companies and some contact names, but we still need to find their contact information in order to reach out to them and tell them about the program. So before, what I was doing is I've been using Apollo. So I will go to Apollo myself manually, plug in some of these companies and contacts that I get from the list. And then whoever I find out, then I send them an email and then hope that they respond, right? Now, the way that the AI agent actually upgraded this by a lot is the fact that now I can do automated research on these companies and contact that I'm trying to outreach for. So I started by trying to find a skill for cold email. Again, I can just find somebody that's an expert in cold emailing already.
How are you researching your skills? Are you just doing a Google search, or what does your skill research look like?
Yeah, so a lot of times I start with like an AI search. I search directly on ChatGPT or Claude, have it go through a few websites. When I find one, I then give it back to the agent and have it run through a security audit. Just make sure that it doesn't have any weird files that need to be downloaded, any apps that need to be installed in order to do the skill or anything like that. For the most part, a skill should just be an MD file. It should be a text file that's just guiding the AI how to work. So I found...
Do you find a few and then like have a standardized ranking system where, just based on your context, where it'll kind of prioritize the top 3 and then you kind of decide or create the best of all 3?
Yeah, so for me, it's actually like I tend to go for the community output. So in most of these places where you can find skills, they have stars or they have votes or whoever, like people are considering it to be the most valuable. So whichever one is the most valuable, that's the one I'm going to try. And then if for some reason I need to edit it myself, I can open the text file and like make some changes to make it more aligned to me.
Yeah.
And again, this is one of those things where like Claude really can be Claude or ChatGPT can be your thinking partner. It's like, hey, I found this skill, it's great, but I want it to be related to these rebate programs that I'm trying to do. So what would you change if it was like specifically for this use case? So you can kind of make your own version of the skill. So basically, I set up an agent. At this point, I'm using Hermes for all my 24/7 agents because I like it way more than OpenClaw now. So I set up one agent there. Her name is Ali, and her whole job is to reach out to this apartment owner. So I have a cron job, which is pretty much an automated task that happens every day, midnight and 30 minutes. So it's like in the beginning of the day. So it's grabbing 10 to 15 properties from that list that I already have pre-saved for apartment owners that qualify, grabs the apartment, grabs the company name, and the contact name. And then because Apollo has a great MCP server, my agent can connect to Apollo directly and find the contact information for these owners. And then finally is doing some research online I try to make a very customized message using the cold email skill. So these emails look like the subject is all in lowercase because I guess that makes it seem like it's an internal email. So they're more likely to open it.
Casual internal email.
Exactly. So things like that is things that are coming from the skill that I don't know myself. So this agent now knows more about cold email than I do. So it's pretty much grabbing the information, it's grabbing a couple of the projects that we have completed before, and it's just building a very simple 1-paragraph email saying something like, hey, I see your company manages 18 different properties in the Austin area. We would like to get you guys some upgrades. The Austin Energy Program pays up to $300,000 per year for doing this, and that. And then here are a couple of the properties that we completed recently if you want to do some more research.
What's the conversion on that? Just like real quick, that's such a killer offer, right?
Yeah.
Because the city's picking up the bill, the building owners, they get the upgrade without the cost, and like you get to do so it's win-win-win. So I'm curious, what is the, like, let's just say like they're interested to see if they qualify. What is that conversion rate on that initial outreach?
Yeah, and well, the beautiful thing is that I have it all set up as like an actual email address. This is all coming from our domain. I made a new user in our Microsoft 365. So the cold emails are not going out from any of those cold email platforms. So I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly the numbers because it's not connected to one of those platforms, which is probably my next step to be able to do it in bulk. But right now the agent is only sending like 10 to 15 per day. For what I see when it's open, we at least get a response. If they don't open it, it's because it's going to spam or some reason. So then we do some follow-ups on the back end. But yeah, if at least they open the email, then it tends to be at least a response, even if they don't know if the property qualifies. I got an email with one of the biggest management companies nationwide, and I don't think any other properties qualify for the program. But now we're starting a conversation about doing service for all of their properties in the local Austin area. So it's even opening doors that we wouldn't even have thought about before.
You get your foot in the door to start the relationship, and then you do good work, and then there's more opportunity to get introduced to a partner or more work within that building. So
Exactly.
It sounds like just getting your foot in the door and starting these relationships itself is just super valuable.
Yeah. Well, and they're also coming out, like most likely an HVAC company is not going to even take the time to do these things. Most likely an HVAC company is not going to present themselves like a professional company that understands rebates and understands the business side of it. So just being able to speak their language already makes it so much better for them to even want to work with you. So it's all about finding these small things that makes you different than the competition.
Dude, I think you should start like a roll-up of just like a bunch of HVAC companies, because you're right. You have this, like your skill stack is so unique. You get to decide like what is the highest leverage use of your time. Because you can see how some these rebates can be applied nationwide. You can kind of just like, and every year there's going to be rebates. So, and there's like a scaling law that'll apply if you can do this, nationwide.
Yeah, no, believe me, we are exploring franchising opportunities for that model using AI as well. I built an app that we use to manage the team day to day for these type of projects because they're so unique that there's not really like an app out there that does it. So we're kind of establishing these processes and just getting really good at that part. And we'll see if that turns into franchising or just opening different markets with like a leader on each market. So we're just kind of open to however that grows from there.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay, so maybe speak a bit generally. Most of our audience are B2B service owners, think like consulting firms, executive recruiters, and they're looking to be smarter in their outreach. And so how can this be practical to a business owner to install one of these, say, outreach agents? Because, a lot of them are doing cold outbound, but they're generally it's getting more and more crowded because now anyone can do it. And so how should they even think about it? Is it a framing of the offer, or like what have been some of your key learnings that might be applicable to a general business owner?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think the framing the offer correctly is a big part, making sure that you're providing as much value even on the front end. If you can make your offer something that you're just letting them know about a thing that might benefit them, even if they work with you or not, that seems to be something that gets a lot of answers. But altogether is making the outreach, even at scale, as customizable as possible. And that's something that AI allows you to do now that you didn't have the chance to do before. So if I'm outreaching to 10,000 business owners in like the service industry, because let's say I own a CRM company and I want to contact HVAC owners, if a company reaches out to me as the CEO of an HVAC company saying something like, hey, we researched your website. We know that you do residential, commercial, and you do this multifamily rebates, and you're probably all over the place. So our software is built out specifically to help you with this kind of projects, and we'd love to get a 5-minute chat with you or something like that to like set up a meeting.
Yeah.
And at least that's something that will make me open it, because it seems like it was built just for me, right? So
Yeah.
right now, Hermes is a really good platform for building like 24/7 agents. So if you can build a simple Hermes agent that's connected to your outreach software, that being Polo, that being SendGrid, that being whichever one you're using to send these emails at scale,
Yeah.
and you have this agent then wake up every 30 minutes to double check the responses, get feedback, improve the messaging, it's probably something that you can automate pretty nicely.
So talk about that. I think this like self-learning and this recursive nature of an agent is much better than what most people are doing right now, where it's just like dumb, general, static, like email sequence. And so how have you, is the follow-up learning based on the response rates across like the base of people that are being emailed?
Yeah, absolutely. So because it's connected to its own, like I'm treating it like an employee. Every time that it's receiving an email back, I have I think OpenCloud calls it a heartbeat, but it's pretty much opening the agent every 30 minutes to do a task. So right now I have it set up to read the inbox, see what replies we got, and then put that in an MD file so you can continue to learn from the results. And it's as simple as that, like plain language, plain English, just telling it every time that this happens, try to learn from it. Again, there's all probably other ways that you can make your agents better by finding more skills that you can give it. Hermes has a really good thing that it creates skills every time that it needs something specific. It's like by default, it's self-learning. So I definitely think that that's one of the biggest unlocks. It's like, well, I sent 200 emails last week, and I'm going to look at the numbers and see that they're not getting a lot of open rates. So let me try something different this week. And you can all work on autopilot.
Interesting. Okay, cool. And then is it pretty much you running the Hermes, or now do you have like other humans that are involved? Yeah, what does that look like?
It's still pretty much me running each one of the agents. I have them set up on my Telegram, and recently they added iMessage. So now I can even text it like I text my wife. So I'm like texting with my agents all day while I'm taking care of like the rest of the business, or while I'm in my personal life. I might just like shoot a message real quick, and that way I can keep an eye on them. But again, the goal is to replace at least some of the tasks that you do. This can all be scaled at a company level where you can grab different tasks that your employees are doing as a whole and then collaborate together to replace those tasks as well. So I just kind of want to, the first part is people understanding that it's possible. And I think that all starts with you as the executive taking the chance on doing that on your own workflows, and then trickling that down to your employees.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to make sure we have enough time for you to kind of speak about like the types of people that you'd be able to help, because a lot of people listening are like, wow, I know this is going to be valuable for my business, but I don't know how to get started. But before we get into that, is there anything you wanted to share about your own, like the second brain command center that you're building within the business? Like, yeah, maybe talk about that.
I think one of the biggest unlocks on the active work that I do with AI, the Hermes and all these agents are kind of automated in the background, but I still use Claude or ChatGPT daily for tasks like preparing a report or summarizing my accounts receivable or creating a PowerPoint for like understanding where I'm at on my cash flow. So that type of day-to-day active work actually changes a lot when you can create a second brain with your context already pre-built. So one problem that people run into when they start using AI is a lot of prompting it every single time. Hey, you are an SEO expert, and I am a CEO for an HVAC company, and look on our website and find the colors. What a second brain allows you to do, even if you do it for your own, is to pre-build some instructions with that context already set up in there. So I have a personal second brain, and actually this week I started a company second brain, so we're kind of testing how that goes. But my personal second brain includes everything related to my HVAC company, to my consulting company, to my personal life. And it includes things like the branding for each one, the rules that I like to use for messaging and emails, and how I don't like to use M dashes because that looks AI generated. So all of these rules I'll follow every time. And then the last rule is that it needs to log everything that it did in every task. So pretty much the brain keeps getting better on every single task that you run through it. So it starts like a structure almost, but then it starts getting filled with, okay, I sent an email to this person. I prepare a report for like this big project that we're doing. And then the more and more you load it into it, you can get it to a point where right now I use it like, hey, can you prepare an estimate like the one we did last week
Mm,
for that customer and make sure we add 10% to the price.
mm,
And it can grab the estimate that we made, it can grab our branding guidelines, it can create a branded document and just do the math to add the price to what I need it to be. You can find my price book, which is already connected. So it can pretty much do a lot of these things without me having to reprompt it every time,
yeah.
which allows me to then build even bigger agents and stuff like this SEO agent. I can just tell it, make me another agent that does that same thing but better. So it has
Mm,
all this context already pre-built.
yeah.
And I think the next unlock, which we're working on, and I know a lot of people are working on too, it's a company second brain where you can connect to it, but then all your employees can connect to it as well. So you have just certain amount of data that you're comfortable sharing, like branding guidelines, like our goals for the year. And that way, every time anybody uses their own engine, it's making the brain bigger for the whole
Mm.
company.
Okay, interesting. And are you now agnostic to Claude or OpenAI? And are you going through like your harness, which might be Hermes, or
Yeah.
how are you like? What is your maybe talk a bit about what your tech stack looks like from
Yeah.
the repo to the reasoning layer to whether you're using like an Obsidian and
Yeah.
also anything that you're storing locally, just so we understand what that setup looks like.
Yeah, so the whole second brain is stored locally, at least mine. It's all on my computer. I open that folder every time that I do a task. And Claude really is 80% of my work. We have ChatGPT on the HVAC company, like a team plan. So I have it as well. And especially with the update they did last week with ChatGPT work, I believe that it has gotten to a point where it can actually be used at the same level as Claude. So
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that it's agnostic. And I created my second brain purposely to be agnostic.
Mm,
I don't want to be locked up to Claude, so I have a Claude.md file that gets the initial instructions, but I also have an agents.md file which works better with Codex or with Hermes agents or any other type of agent. So pretty much I have it platform agnostic. Most of my active work I do with Claude. All of my automated work I do with Hermes because it lives on that virtual machine. So it's just on 24/7. And for that, I kind of switch around models depending on the task. If it's something image related, I tend to go with Google Nano Banana. But if it's like processing, I might do Opus for the orchestrator because it's the smartest one so far without Fable. And then I do maybe like some of the smaller models for like the actual execution of the task.
mm,
So this can get pricey when you start playing around with it and start building these agents, especially if you want to go with the top model, it can get pretty pricey. So then you start looking for strategies on, okay, when it's thinking, I wanted to use this model, but when it's executing, I wanted to use something cheaper because it already has all
yeah.
the information that it needs.
Yeah, really, really interesting. Cool. I know there are a lot of people that are thinking, wow, I know this is going to be useful in my business. There's so many use cases that they could apply this to. So if someone wanted to learn more, actually, before we get into that, how are you like learning yourself? Like you talk about watching YouTube videos and doing searches.
Mhm.
Are there any particular creators in the AI space that you trust that you keep going back to? Talk a bit about your learning process to stay ahead of the curve.
My YouTube algorithm is so set for me now that I just need to open the homepage and there's probably something new that I'm going to learn. But
Yeah.
I guess the top creators that I gravitate to, it's Nate Herks. He's a big guy on YouTube and he's all about cloud code and setting up your second brains and all that good stuff.
Hmm.
And then also I listen to the AI Daily Brief podcast.
Hmm.
His name is Nathaniel, and it's like a daily update on what the models are changing, what new things got released, and that's how I kind of stay on top of what's happening. And if I hear something on that podcast that is like, hey, ChatGPT just released a new ChatGPT work, then I might go to YouTube and just search ChatGPT work and see what people are doing with it.
Okay, cool. You said Nate Hurst as the first guy?
Nate Herks, Herks.
Herks. Okay, cool. We'll include that in the show notes. Well, cool. Oscar, where can people find you if they want to learn more and just start a conversation to see how they can implement some of the stuff in their own business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started a consulting company and it's called Vindex Consulting. And my whole goal is to work with operators like me that are bogged down by the day to day and are trying to automate these tasks. I find a lot of passion on understanding business problems. So even the consulting part of just talking to an owner, I feel like that's where we find a lot of value. It's just kind of breaking down which workflows actually need AI and stuff like that. So if anybody wants to learn about that, it's bindexconsulting.com. minimum.
Mhm.
And we recently added, because I believe this second brain is so important and it's something that a lot of people will get value from it. You can go to bindexconsulting.com/second brain altogether. And there is a GitHub that I created that has my setup for my
Mm.
personal and my business second brain.
Yeah.
You can pretty much ask your Claude or your ChatGPT to implement it, and it should create a folder with all the skills that you need and everything that to run it yourself if you want to go that route. But I'll be happy to help with anybody on any industry type of wanting to just automate some of their day to day.
Perfect. And what's the message you have to business owners who maybe haven't maybe there's a bit of like there's some, like fearfulness or even some resistance to not knowing how to get started or knowing where to search. Like, what words of wisdom might you have for business owners to start really getting the most out of AI?
Yeah, I think that just taking the 20 hours in a week that takes to even get proficient at anything. I follow a lot of Alex Ramosi, and he talks about this 20-hour concept when it actually takes about 20 hours to be dangerous enough on any concept. So if you spend the next 20 hours this week to understand ChatGPT and Claude and what are these models are, and just search it all in whichever platform you prefer, everybody's talking about the same things.
Yeah.
YouTube, X, Facebook, you name it. So put the time in to at least get familiar with the concepts, and I feel like the doors are going to keep opening from there of what you think it's possible. Even me applying this stuff to an HVAC business, which is by default like a very traditional non-techie business, I hope it serves as proof for some people that even the most traditional businesses can be revolutionary with this new technology.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And again, as Hormozy says, like, one of the best ways to level up and learn quickly is to pay down the ignorance tax and find
Yeah.
experts who've already done it and have a conversation with them, whether it's a paid call or a consultation call. In my experience, that's been the fastest way to pay down that ignorance tax, get the unlock, really just save yourself so many hours of trial and error. So awesome.
Yeah.
Oscar, we'll link all of this information in the show notes. Thanks for dropping the wisdom today and look forward to following your journey.
I appreciate it, Rohan. Thank you again for the invitation, and I hope that I can bring value to your community any way I can.
Sounds good.